All right, so in this lesson, we're going to be talking about 5 easy, basic, simple piano chords that you can play right now. Now, these are very, very, very simple chords, and what's awesome about these chords is that if you can build a major chord, if you can build any major chord on the piano, then you'll be able to play just about all of these chords because they're just so simple. Because and when you build the major chord, if you make a couple adjustments to the chord, then you'll be able to play a lot of other chords, and these chords are the same way. If you can play the major chord, then you'll be able to play any of these chords because they are all so similar. So let's go ahead and let's talk about what we need to do to build the major chord. The first thing is that, as always, whenever we're learning new chords or whenever we're doing anything on the piano, we have to play the major scale. So if you've been playing for any length of time, then you know that the C major scale is all white notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to C. Those are the 7 tones in the C major scale. Now, if you want to build these chords that we're going to be talking about, you have to take that scale and you have to apply numbers to each of the tones in that scale, and that's going to give you, or make it a whole lot easier to be able to build these chords. So we have to start off with giving the first tone in the scale a 1 and then counting up to 7 at the very end. So we have C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and then C is either 8 or 1 because it's an octave here. So you can do that in any major scale on the piano. So if you're doing the key of D major, you would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. Key of E major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. Same thing with all the other keys, all the other major keys on the piano. You start off with 1, then count all the notes: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, or 8. Okay, now that's very important because if we can build a major chord, or if we can give each of these tones in the scale a number, then it's going to be very easy for us to be able to build these basic chords. Now, the first chord that we're going to be talking about is a major chord, okay? And all you have to do in order to build this major chord is use the 1, 3, and 5 of the major scale. So what we have to do is just look back at what we just did. So we just counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. And we just have to find the 1, 3, and the 5. So there's 1. We've already found that tone. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? That's your major chord, C major chord, C, E, and G, and that's going to be your major chord. It's really that simple, just 1, 3, and 5 to play that C major chord. And you could do that with every single key on the piano. If you can just remember the formula 1, 3, 5, then you can build that chord. So the same thing is if you want to play the key, a D major chord, you would just find the tones in the D major scale, which are D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. You just go through and give each of those tones a number. D is 1, E is 2, F sharp is 3, G is 4, A is 5, B is 6, C sharp is 7, and then D is 1 or 8 because they're octaves. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, or 8. And all you have to do is just use the 1, 3, and 5, and that's all you have to do. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that gives us the D major chord. Now, this is probably basic for a lot of you, but this is helpful because when we move on to the next set of chords that we're going to be talking about, it's going to be helpful because all you have to do is make a couple of adjustments of these tones right here to be able to build these chords. So the D major chord is D, F sharp, and A. Let's go ahead and let's do another chord. Let's do like a D flat major chord. You have to do the same thing. Play the notes in the key of D flat major, which are D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, and D flat. And then we have to give each of those tones in that scale a number. So we have D flat is 1, E flat is 2, F is 3, G flat is 4, A flat is 5, B flat is 6, C is 7, and then D flat is your 8 or your 1. So now we've already gone through and we've labeled each of those tones. Now all we have to do is find the 1, 3, and 5 of that scale to be able to build the D flat major chord. So there's your 1, is your D flat is your first tone, it's your 1. Then we have E flat is 2, F is 3. So D flat and F are your first two tones in the D flat major chord. So we have 1, 2, 3. There's 4. And then A flat is 5, so you have those three tones. D flat, F, and A makes your D flat major chord. So it's really simple. So you can do that with every single chord on the piano. So there's your C, D flat, D major, E flat major, E major, F major, G flat, G, A flat, A, B flat, B, and C. So those are all your major chords. Now, all you have to do is use that 1, 3, and 5 formula to be able to play any of those chords on the piano. So that's the first chord, and most everyone should know how to play a major chord. If you don't understand how to play a major chord, then you need to go back and check the major chord mastery lesson that we have in the members area, because that'll explain everything that I just talked about. It's going to go into a whole lot more detail. It's going to talk about whole steps and half steps and how we build that, how we make this C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, how we make that at our major scale, and how we pick these notes to be the D flat major scale and the D major scale. So we're using these tones to help us, or there's a formula that you can use to make that scale, but we're not going to talk about that in this lesson because this is more focused on chords and 5 simple chords that you can start playing. So the first chord is the major chord. Okay, the next chord you've probably guessed is going to be the minor chord, and the minor chord and the major chord are the two most important chords. If you don't learn any other chord on the piano, then you need to learn major and minor chords in all 12 keys. These two chords can make up pretty much any song that you would ever want to play. Now, there's songs out there that have, major 7s, dominant 7s, 9ths, 13ths, all that kind of craziness. But in reality, you don't have to really play that. Like, for example, if you play, that's a C major 9, you don't have to play all those notes to make that chord. If you were playing just a basic song and that was it, the song called for that chord, you wouldn't have to play that. You could just play that C major right there and it would be fine. So you don't have to always follow what the chord chart says if you're not that advanced yet. If you haven't, reached the level of being able to play these types of chords, then that's okay. Just instead of playing that, just play this right here. Just play C and it's fine. So, if you can learn those two chords, major and minor, you can play just about anything that you could ever want on the piano. So how do we build a minor chord? There's 2 ways that you can do it. The first way is it's not that it's harder, but it's not the easiest way. The second way that I'm going to show you is going to be the easier way. The first way is you're going to, in the major chord example, we use 1, 3, and 5. To build the minor chord, you use the 1, the flat 3, and the 5. And if you're not familiar with what flat means, flat just means that you're taking a note and you're moving down to the very next note next to it. So making E a flat would be going to E flat. So that is your first kind of lesson there. You have to be able to make a note flat. So all you have to do to play the minor chord is play the 1, flat 3, and 5. So it's just going to be like this: 1, 2, 3, Well, instead of playing your instead of playing your E, you're going to play your flat 3, which would be E flat. And then your 5. So 4 here, and then 5. So the C minor chord is C, E flat, and G because we've taken the 1, flat 3, and 5 to create that minor chord. And if you notice, this is the second way that you can build the chord. It's really just building a major chord. You just take this middle note right here and flat it, and now you've got a minor chord. So you have major, minor, C major, C minor. So this is all you have to do, just C major, C minor, to be able to make a minor chord. Is just take a major chord, take the middle note, and flat it, and you've got a minor chord. So it's the same thing. If you have, you can do the 1, flat 3, and 5 to figure it out, or you can just take a major chord and move it down a half step. So let's do an example. Let's say that we're in the key of D, and this is remember when we build our D major chord, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the notes in the D major chord are D, G flat, D, F sharp, and A. And you're just going to take this middle note and move it down a half step down this way. So from here to here. So it's D, F, and A. Those are going to be your 3 tones in that chord. So D, F, and A is your D minor chord. The same thing if you're playing an E major chord. You play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is E, G sharp, and B. Take your middle note and move it down a half step or flat it to the G, and that's going to be E, G, and B to create your E minor chord. So that's really all you have to do to create these minor chords, is just take a major chord, move it down a half step to make it a minor. So F minor, F, A flat, C, G major, G, B flat, D. Let's do a flatted one. This is a G flat major chord, G, B flat, and D flat. Take this middle note, this third tone in the scale or in the chord. Move down a half step to the A, G flat, A, and D flat to make the G flat minor chord. And if you listen to those two different chords, you can tell a huge difference between the major and the minor chord. And that's what's going to help you when you actually start learning to play by ear. You're going to listen to those different chords. Listen, there's major. Sounds bright and pretty, and it just sounds good. It sounds, like it's right. When you play this, that just it sounds like there's some tension there. That's what that minor chord gives you. It gives you that tension. And also, what a minor chord does is, say that you're playing a series of chords. There's an F major to G major, back to C major. Everything sounds really nice and pleasant. But if you want to change something in the chord progression, you could play C major, F. There's A minor. There's a G major. So the minor chords can be thrown in there into the mix into a very positive chord progression like C, F, G, C, and it can add like a little tension. It can go in there to So you can throw those minor chords in there a little bit to make things sound a little bit more interesting. And that's, if you're tired of everything sounding so nice and pleasant and perfect in the major world, you can add those minors in there to give it a little bit of a different tonality, a different sound, rather than everything. It makes it a little darker, rather than that sounds bright and right and good and everything. But then when you take it kind of makes it sound a little mysterious, and that's what minor chords do to a song. It can really change up some things and make it sound a little bit, gives it some some different quality to the chords rather than everything being so nice and perfect and pleasant. It adds a little mystery to the chords, to the song. So that's your second chord that you need to know. And everybody should know those, no matter what. If you do not know those two chords, stop go study those. Once this is over, once our session's over, go practice those two chords, major and minor. Now, if you want to add some more, or if you want to be able to play some more chords, then you can go on and we can talk about some other chords. So the next chord that I'm going to talk about is called either a 5 chord or an open fifth, power chords, things like that. They're really, really easy. And it's just like playing a major chord, except you're removing one of the notes in the major chord. So C, E, and G make up the C major chord. But if you want to play this open fifth or this power chord, all you have to do is take this middle tone here, this E, and just get rid of it. So you're just going to, instead of playing C, E, and G, you're just going to play C and G. And this is what a lot of guitar players do. If they play, electric guitar, most electric guitar players play power chords. And what it does is you're not specifying any type of, major or minor tonality. So let's say, for example, we'll go back to the key of, we were back to the chord progression we were just doing a minute ago. We said it went C, F major, A minor, G major, C, and that's how the chord progression went. Well, if you play these open fifths, you're not determining any type of major or minor tonality of that chord. So if you're not really sure what type of chord it is, you can play these open fifths, and you have the meat of the chord right here, but you're just not choosing to play this middle tone to choose whether it's major or minor. And that's what guitar players a lot of times do, is they'll just play these power chords because first of all, they're easy to play for a guitar player, and they don't have to, make that distinction between major or minor. And they're playing something that sounds a little bit more like this. So, but anyways, in our context, let's say that you're playing a C major. You're playing an open fifth here. You're just playing C and G. Go to the F major, F, and C, taking out the A. Now we're coming to the A minor. Playing just the A and E, leaving out the C. G and D. Back to the C. And that's what guitar players do. They do this right here. And that's what they do pretty much through the whole song. If they're just, strumming on that on eighth notes, they'll just play these power chords, and it really fills up the song. But then they don't have to play as many notes, and they don't have to choose whether it's major or minor. So they don't have that opportunity to make a mistake, because you're just playing. Because either whether it's major or minor doesn't matter. These notes stay the same. Now, how does that help us as being a piano player? Well, what you can do as a piano player is you can play these open fifths, and you can add this octave here and just play kind of like a guitar player does. And you don't even have to add this up here. You can just kind of play like this. Maybe play an octave down here of C's, of the root chord. And you can just play on the quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4 to the F. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4 to the A. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, G. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's perfect. It helps you to not have to choose a major or minor tonality, and it just opens the chord up. And even if you wanted to do something like this, if you listen to a lot of contemporary praise and worship songs, very modern praise and worship songs, a lot of times they'll just play something like this. if you notice, I didn't move this hand at all. All I did was play the power chord with an added C at the top, and I just changed the root chords, or the root notes down here. I went C down here in my left hand, F's in my left hand. This is staying the same here in my right hand. Move up to the A, to the G. I'm going to go down to the F now. And that sounds really awesome. I mean, I think that sounds pretty cool, and it's so easy. It's just an open fifth. And if you, I mean, if you don't want to do this reach right now, if you just want to, just do this right here, it's the same. It sounds pretty much the same way, And that's what a ton of contemporary praise and worship songs sound like. A lot of country songs will do that. Rock songs, pop songs, a majority of songs will just do that because, when these musicians are in the studio recording these songs, they don't, when my wife was recording her album, my wife has a contemporary Christian album, and when the musicians would go in there and play, they didn't have time to just sit there and study, the melody of the song or to study the sheet music. They just got down and they're like, okay, let's figure out how we can play this the most efficient way. And most of the time by doing that was just playing something like that. They would... And if you notice, all I did right there is I just arpeggiated the chord rather than just playing it like this. As I went. That's all I did. So these open fifths can really give you a lot of versatility. It gives you a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things. You can just play it easy on the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can do something like that. You can arpeggiate them like I did there. Something like that. So it gives you a lot of opportunities, and like I said, you don't have to make that distinction between major or minor. So if you're not sure what kind of chord it is, then just play that open fifth, and it doesn't make a difference because the outside notes are the same, and the middle tone is what makes it major or minor, and that'll kind of help you to determine, or it helps you from having to make that distinction between major and minor. Okay, so I love playing open fifth, especially with contemporary music. Now, if you're playing like traditional music, jazz, or even like traditional hymns or blues or something like that, you probably want to stick you want to make sure that you add those notes in there to make sure that you're distinguishing what type of chord it is. But if you're playing contemporary music, whether it's country, praise and worship, pop, whatever, rock, you can play those open fifths because that's how most albums are recorded, by using those types of chords. Okay, so the first chord was major. Second chord we talked about was minor. Third chord was just playing the open fifths or the power chords, adding the octaves in there if you want to. The next chord is a suspended chord, and a suspended chord is really cool because it's a chord that has some type of resolution. If you don't know what resolving means in music, it basically means that you're hearing something and the chord is wanting to go somewhere, that if you just played it by itself, it would feel like that you had, like you held in a sneeze or something like that, or you, I don't know how to describe it, but like you just felt like you had an itch that you just couldn't scratch or something like that, because it just you're feeling like it's wanting to go somewhere. That's what it means when you resolve. So, for example, if I'm playing a chord progression like this, C major, that's a G suspended. Hear how it went from That's the resolve from the G suspended to a G major. And I'll explain what that means. But I just wanted you to hear it because in that particular chord progression, that's your suspension and your major. Basically what's happening is you're playing this chord and you're like, oh, if you just play that right there, I'm gonna it just gets to you until you resolve it and you're like, oh, okay, now everything's great, everything's fine. You just scratched the itch that I was trying to get. That's some tension and then the resolve, tension and back to the resolve or the resolution. So that's what a suspension does. Now, not all the times do you have to resolve it, but it fits into the music more if you do that resolution a lot of times. But let's talk about what it is and how we can use it, and then we'll move on to our last chord. So the suspension chord it's the 1, the 4, and the 5 of the major scale. So when we talked about building the major chord, we said 1, 3, and 5. Well, the major chord or the suspended chord is the 1, 4, and 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So C, F, and G is a C suspended chord. C, F, and G. And even if you listen to that, it's kind of like, oh, it needs to resolve. It needs to resolve. Oh, and that sounds better, right? So the C suspended resolves to the C major chord. So this is the same thing. Let's do the same thing in the D major chord. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're using the 1, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So D, G, and A. That's going to be your D suspended chord. And it resolves back to the D major. So D suspended, D major. D suspended, D major. Same thing with E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So E, A, and B resolves to the E major. Okay, so the suspended chord is really cool because, like I said, it causes that tension. Now, how can we use it? If you just, you could play an entire intro of a song using just the suspension and the resolve or the resolution back to the major chord. So, for example, let's just say that you're just playing a song. You're just playing and you want to change it up a little bit. You can add the suspended, which is the F, back to the C major. There's the C suspended. C major. There's your C suspended. Back to your C major. So that suspension chord is really cool because you can kind of just play back and forth between the suspended back to the major. Suspension, major. And that's just, you can do that all day long if if you were just wanting to play like a little let's say, for example, that you're playing at church and you wanted to play something in between the transition, you can just play something like that. Okay, and you can also use it inside of chord progressions. There's a lot of songs that use different progressions that are kind of like, there's a C major, G suspended, D, something like that. So you can use those suspensions in there too. So that's a really easy chord. So the first chord was your major. minor, open fifth or power chord, and then your suspended chord is your fourth chord that we talked about. It's that easy. Just taking your third, playing your fourth instead. All right, so the next chord is probably one of my favorite chords, and it is the add 2 chord. The add 2, or it's just the 2 chord. It doesn't matter, however you want to call it. It's either one. It's basically what it is. You're adding the 2 to the chord. So if you're playing a C major chord, C, E, and G, the C add 2 just means that you're adding the second tone in the chord in the scale. So 1, 2. And then play the C major chord. So it looks like this, C, D, E, G. You know, you can play it like that. This is the add 2, or you can just play the C2, which is just the C, D, and G. Either way. And I like this chord because it adds a lot of fullness to the chord. You know, if you're playing a different inversion, you can play something like this. You can play something like this. It just adds a lot more, you know, that fullness to the chord, and it gives it some, you know, more voicings in the chord rather than just playing this all the time. So if you wanted to play something else, you know, change it up a little bit. So rather than playing the C major all the time, you could just play the C2 instead. And you can do that with every chord. So instead of playing a major chord, play the 2 chord, and you'd be fine. So for example, in the progression we were playing earlier, there's our C2. We'll move up to the F major. This is the F2. Now the minor, you can't add the 2. I mean, you can. It just doesn't sound as good. There's our G2. There's my F2. A minor. G2. F2. So the 2 is really cool because it makes the chords sound a whole lot more contemporary. It makes them sound more full, and it adds, you know, just some more voicings to the chord. So rather than just playing this all the time, add that in there, and it makes it a little bit more full. And you can spread those notes out. You know, you can play them like this, or like this, or like this. So there's a whole lot of different options. And like I said, every time that you play a major chord, you can play that 2 chord instead, or the add 2, and it's going to add a lot to the chord. Now, there's something that you can do as well if you want to add some more tension to a chord. Like if you do the C major, or C suspended, there's your C major. Then you can go down to the C2, back to your C. So this is a bunch of resolving chords, and I'm sure you've heard this before. And all I did was play C suspended, C, C2, C. C suspended, C major, C2, C major, and that's all, you know, there's a resolution that all 3 of those chords resolve to one another, so you can use those interchangeably to give yourself a lot of different sounds that resolve, you know, the resolution that we were talking about, and it's just going to add a whole lot more voicings to it. So the chords that we talked about today, major is 1, 3, and 5. The minor, 1 flat 3 and 5. The open fifth is just the 1 and the 5. The suspended is the 1, 4, and 5. And the 2 or the add 2 is either the 1, 2, 3, and 5, or just the 1, 2, and 5. There's your C2 or your C add 2, either one. So those are the different chords that you can use, and I hope that you're able to take those and apply them to your music, be able to, you know, add a whole lot of more, you know, interchangeable type of chords, you know, instead of just using the major, minor all the time. Add in some suspensions, add in some 2s, add in some open fifths, give yourself a little bit different of a sound quality to the chords that you're trying to play. So, but those are some, really basic, easy to play chords. They don't require you to have to use, all 5 fingers to play and stretch across, some kind of crazy something like that. It's a lot. It's easy, just it's either 3 tones, and it's really easy to do. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that's something that you can use and you can apply to your songs, and hopefully that it gives you some more opportunities and some more different opportunities to be able to play different types of chords, different types of songs, and add to what you're currently playing right now. So with that, let's go ahead and let's go over any questions that anyone may have. So let's go ahead and let's talk about some questions.